Sheila here with Sirius Telus Moon, and following my previous episode, I want to address why do so many innovations, um, whether they contain real estate or not, around recovery from ritual abuse or mental health or healing, um, basically fall flat at providing housing first, and why this is a point that exposes that something is a scam. So, as I go about my journey um, practicing aromatherapy, which began from my thesis proposal and taking a break from academia because I did not comply with Epstein Barr, and I have this thing around me where I have keto in my tent house, so I have non-attachment around my legacy. Uh, and the joy of actually, if it's something to do with my career or my work, um, the joy of it actually providing value that actually improves upon the lives of people, essentially, not the image of. Now, one can say having keto in the tent house is a privileged position because it means that all the things that, let's say, Rao in the tent house um, would be really striving for. And Ketu has kind of been there. there is an energy with Ketu where things like career, reputation, whether we have good or bad reputation, this sense of non-attachment around that is more profound. Whereas people have Rahu there may materialize something very important, and yet they don't have this. If you think about astrology, I have astrology in the 10th house, and it could be next to world renowned astrologers that I would look at the chart and something comes out of me, and I completely forget the room. And that would look very weird, particularly when I just began to study astrology. So, but anybody that is a good astrologer could tell that, hey, that person has Ketu co-present with Uranus in the 10th house and Neptune next to the midheaven, Mula Nakshatra. So they've been somewhere before that is like a fish in the water to them. Um, and so when it comes to um, my career, I really look to the core of the thing. So if I do something like aromatherapy, and I say, wait a second, my prospective clients would take the oil and everything would transform around their life. They would need to participate in societal change. What would be the correct framework to see them as patients? Because I don't see the point of charging them money if they already come to me to address something on a holistic level. And yet I'm also a business, and this is where I did simple services like recommending oils for fair price and making people very aware that this is going to change their lives. That this is not about a magic pill, but something that will further instigate the changes that are needed in their lives um, fundamentally. And so when I was looking at each and every healing sector, I became profoundly aware of the connection between, along the years, between violation at the root level, attempts to get at the roots of people, the ancestry, and so on. Even attempts to make people write their worries or write their fears or paint their monsters and I'm not saying that those things are not therapeutic, but they're also serving as the person in the position of therapy being an informant, which is why I didn't take on a consultation job myself, albeit there was tremendous pressure to initiate me to do such stuff, which would basically entail being a Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, when it comes to healing in spite of the healthcare system, and first and foremost, to do Neptune correctly is to understand that people are healing in spite of the system. It would really take a person with, let's say, Ketu in the 10th house, Ketu Neptune, um, and I have the conjunction of Rahu, Chiron, and Ketu in the 10th house, and Neptune with the midheaven, and midheaven Mula Nakshatra, and Uranus co-present with Ketu and Rahu and Chiron, which is and Chiron and Chiron around the decan of Gemini, where is the anything goes decan, but Rahu within the term of the first decan of Gemini, that is the Rohini part where we do care about the truth and materializing truth. Um, and the fact that my lot of fate is functional. So I'm like I'm the negative of all the scams. Um, okay, given a film industry analogy, um, yeah, I'm the camera obscura effect of healing. Those are things that I understand as I speak because I'm coming to my raw maturation, and Sedna is next to my Chiron, with Uranus about to conjoin Sedna and Chiron. So this is, and even maybe in the negative too, let's say Scientology, and various healing scams. And the healing scams are not healing scams because they aren't modalities that work, but they're healing scams because those modalities are always offered as bait, and this is the access to love that is actually loving, sense of self, relaxed arousal rather than susceptibility to pedo cults. Um, the pre-erotic self is basically connecting the dots in spite of the wish that people will never connect the dots. And will be particularly addicted to the process of healing or even the process of being a healer. Um, Even and especially when Chiron is juxtaposed to Rahu, where a person is disdained to deal with being or materializing issues around the wounded healer from a new approach or a new perspective. Um, and so this is also how certain people that have those juxtapositions as I do might even be singled out, but they have to. If I take a look at people that were singled out, even in the um, potential of healing professions, then they run the risk of joining Scientology, or they run the risk of doing something that is like Scientology. And this is where caution is needed at every turn, And the one thing that I found particularly with Neptune in Aries and co-present with Chiron that is the make or break is, other than secure attachment, relaxed arousal, and honoring the erotic and pre-erotic, and insisting on that, um, because those that take a look at, oh, transcending sexuality, they don't hit at the core of having a house, of having wealth, of having um, the right to speak, a freedom of speech, which is also freedom of reach. Um, and this is exactly where I would see even housing involving initiatives fall flat, because the realistic appraisal of what it takes to heal is housing first, independent of ability to work, for unlimited time, believe in the patient, quitting the targeting around them, and aligning with all these things that I said, with the various healing modalities on the frequency of love that is actually loving consistently. And this is exactly where the Scientology like scams fall flat. If they don't provide for the conditions, but they expect healing and they blame it on the patient for not doing the work. Now, here's the thing, when it comes to our patient sovereignty, it's extremely important, but that's just the point about it. It's healing in spite of that system that gaslight the patient into, oh, you're a sovereign being, you have responsibility, you have choice, without actually providing the preconditions to access choice, also in spirit and in matter. And this is the litmus test, um, of whether we are dealing with a business that hasn't crossed to the threshold, or conglomerate that hasn't crossed to the threshold of actually being an alternative to Scientology and MK Often and MK Ultra. People will say, surely this is an entire country. Okay. We can't ignore that and expect something that is not the image of progress. And we can't ignore that and expect something that is not a megalithic bubble pop to everyone involved. Okay, this is um, this can either be the time where they try to fool all the people all the time, which is bound to fail, or where they actually address the things that need to be addressed, like an address, and have that address safe in spirit and in matter, safe from energy weapon, um, sense of self in one's body, in one's home, and even those that are participating in those, basically bait scams, are either there because they believe that this is the maximum that they can help, um, at this point, which would inevitably cross the threshold. Uh, and if that, I'm even less concerned. Or they are still believing that, oh, if you wouldn't speak about it, we can help you. No, speaking about it is a part of recovery. It's not the only part of recovery, but it's not something we can take away, and it's not something we can force. Not forcing speaking about it is also part of recovery. Um, Basically, being who we are, sovereign. Um, it's coming out of the power and domination or power's domination paradigm to the sense of self. Um, it's evolving from pain as a teacher to love that is actually loving as an alignment frequencies that contain processing our emotions, but not being overwhelmed by emotions due to being put in perpetual trauma situations, and not to be gaslit by the concept of resilience in an engineered situation of perpetual violence. In fact, that resilience is actually being achieved by taking action to change the structure. Okay. um, Neptune Aries is the last outer planet we will have other than Aries before, we're probably going to, before Pluto, I think we're going to have Pluto Uranus. With Pluto Aries, I think we're going to have Pluto Uranus. Let's see what the ephemeris says. Because if you're going to have Pluto Uranus conjunction in Aries, it's quite fascinating. Um, no, we have 20 years, 20 years. It's not a Uranus transit. But this is basically the outer planet we have before Pluto is coming to Aries. And if we don't get it with Neptune, we're going to have to stand in our power to that, with Pluto. Because Pluto would be the power of the I am psychologically, but also in terms of nuclear energy, in terms of political power, in terms of hidden power, accumulating power, and the remembering that, just like with the end of Pluto in Capricorn, we had the lists of the people that had a Swiss bank account, namely founder of Bank Leumi and CEO, not founder, CEO of Bank Leumi, and yeah, founder would be Antiquity, but um, but what was considered the bunker of tax evasion was basically voluntarily leaking. Not so voluntarily. There was a Swiss banking woman whistleblower, um, but we also definitely can identify now that anything that doesn't actually provide and yet requires all the work being done on by the patient when the healing modality profits off of secret projects or classified projects, namely MK Often and MK Ultra, to dehouse a person. um, and this is where um, this is a bubble that just where the people are. Either people are going to go Frank Olsen in the scene of the death of Frank Olsen because of the many things that they will see, or that they are going to, just when they wanted to cash in on that, find that the currency changed or that they've been replaced, or okay, kind of like a scam is a scam is a scam. um, and people can either know that it's a scam and prepare and the thing with Neptune is just like the Epstein list, just when they prepare for the fall, um, And with Neptune, Saturn, I'd even go so far to say as people already want the bubble to pop on them during the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. They don't want to go through another believing that they got away with that and basically continuing on until um, and sometimes they kind of like have no choice and this is what they do, but they have no choice here is the key point because they try to gaslight that there is choice while they have no choice, and this is the tending to that is the key to getting out of the very literal ghetto. um, Aspects and transits. Talking about actually the ephemeris here, Pluto in. Lovely to have a digital ephemeris. I know that the internet is changing, um, but Pluto in Aries, and we go from 1822. Okay, that's gonna be quite some time. Let's try to change the years up and put it from today. 2067, 2066. So the ingress of Pluto to Neptune. Because Neptune is in Aries right now. The ingress of Pluto to Neptune will be. No, I'm not correct in that. This is absolutely correct. The ingress of Pluto to Neptune. um, yeah, 2067, 2066. This is 18 June 2066, where we're going to have Chiron in Pisces again. Pluto ingresses into Aries. Neptune is in Cancer. The nodes are with Ketu in Cancer, Ketu Neptune. What did I talk about? Ketu Neptune, Rahu Capricorn, Uranupiter, or Jupiter-Uranus. Jupiter-Uranus in Sag, trining Pluto. This is going to be some huge event. some huge events are going to take place around this time. We have Lilith Sol conjoining, which is a minor detail, but a fascinating one. At the time of the ingress, Saturn is going to be in Leo. And this would be the beginning of Pluto in Aries. And again, anything we don't, any place we, any disillusionment that we don't, that we postpone. Okay, any disillusionment from ideation of healing modalities that we postpone to Pluto in Aries will have to stand in our power during Pluto in Aries. And with Pluto and anything Pluto in the second house, okay, people that have Capricorn ascendant, very important to keep in mind that it's good, it's okay to have hidden assets. It's silly to predict that they will remain hidden. And if we know that, and if we know that no, we can't control when will it happen, particularly now with Saturn Neptune in Aries, then And the image of we've been controlling that for centuries has been maintained by sacrificing a lot of Epstein lists on the guillotine. Okay, so and this is, it's not for nothing. In Israel we hear things like the people of eternity, um, very easily predicting that most people will not be a part of that eternity, and even people that believe that they are going to be centurions or living to 100 didn't always, okay, fulfill that predicament. Usually because they Frank Olson on the way, particularly when talking about WHO um, versus drug lords, um, and all kinds of. And this is exactly where punishment is a fake power scam. This is also why jail system doesn't work. Okay, it's both why we can't rely on, let's say, tax evasion being hidden, and why jail systems don't work. And this is exactly what I addressed when I talked about the patent of the manufacturing of the offender, that is serving extortion codes. And when people think, oh, they're going to run the extortion codes, um, well, with the shifting of the type of energy we use and the potential around that, we basically see that by the merit of their own predicament, their power has an expiration, or their power scam is an expiration date, and that eternity is sacrificing even them. Now, if we're talking about the so much approximate of Neptune, which is non-attachment and surrendering the results, this is why Neptune is associated with megalithic wealth, and it could be associated with the JP Morgan having Pluto in Aquarius, although talking about millionaires don't use astrology, billionaires do. And by the way, they do. I've personally seen elections for launches of things, and have made my warnings when, because it's a treason cult. Okay, so and even the people within, they would think that they can trick and dupe and this and that, but it keeps faltering into pieces until they actually provide with the appeasing of Neptune, let's say patient sovereignty in housing first, that is also on an energy, etheric, and occultistic and esoteric level. Um, in mundane politics, we use it as um, basically the notion that countries will keep doing the wrong thing until they do it until they do the right thing. They would keep trying everything that doesn't work, and this is basically the fakeness of power. It's not their fault, um, but it's also something that we become more and more keenly aware of. Um, and people going through these transitions, for example, there are probably a lot of Americans that are looking at Iran targeting Google, Microsoft, and Nvidia, and quietly sip their coffee, and try not to think about popcorn. Now, note the missing tech moguls in the equation, but note the fact that the empires would have to respond attacking those. There were already some of them exposed in Epstein files. Um, and then there are, oh, it's all to collapse the system, to instill a new one. Well, did they not collapse the system to instill new ones? Of course, yes. At the same time, um, there also are things that didn't exist before, and the more that they try to, um, the more that they try to take them away, namely women's rights, labor rights, the more it becomes impossible to control the situation. Um, and again, it's not a shame and blame. People that were born into certain part of the geopolitical nervous system grid um, operate by their own structures, but it's also a point of interference, which is the point of these videos.